If you're anything like me, which I assume you are, since you clicked on this video, you spent years trying to be perfect in everything you do. You can't help but add those finishing touches, make those final tiny tweaks, ensuring that everything is perfectly aligned before you ship, before you hit send, publish, or post. You do this because you think that if it's perfect, this will increase your odds of success. And I get it. But what I want to ask you is, how far has this gotten you in your life? And you need to be real with me and yourself. How far has it gotten you in life? How many girls did you not approach because you didn't have that perfect line? How many hours have you wasted on polishing only to quit later? How many times did you delay and delay only to end up never having started? If this hits home for you, stick around. This is the type of video that you need to watch. You see, society made us think that perfectionism is what we need to be excellent in the various domains of our life. Your parents praised it, your teachers rewarded it, your employers demanded it. But the thing I've come to realize about perfectionism is that it's not excellence, it's actually just fear. Deep down, you think that if you just push hard enough, sacrifice more, control more, you'll finally be worthy. But the research says something totally different. Let me show you what I mean. So let's imagine a pair of brothers, both ambitious, both hardworking, both setting goals and chasing them relentlessly. But when feedback comes and when reality doesn't match their internal standards, they react completely differently. One brother, the striver, let's call him Gohan, sees feedback as information. He adjusts, he learns, he moves forward, much like a cybernetic system. But let's not go that deep. Topic for another video. Subscribe if you're into stuff like that. And the other brother, Goten, the perfectionist, sees feedback as failure. He freezes, gets into loops, questions everything. The difference is not intelligence or work ethic, it's their relationship with imperfection. And here's what's wild. Gohan consistently outperforms Goten, not because he's smarter, but because he's willing to be wrong. He's willing to embrace the suck. He has no problem with being bad at something. And the uncomfortable truth that no one is telling you is this: perfectionism has zero correlation with actual performance. None. In fact, perfectionism does the opposite. It sabotages you in three specific ways. And I want you to listen out for any of these and tell me in the comments which one you've fallen into before. Sabotage number one is the effort collapse. When perfectionists fail, and they inevitably will, it's life, something inside them breaks. A study tracked gym goers, the ones with rigid perfectionist standards. After one missed workout, they quit entirely. They didn't just skip a day, they abandoned the whole fucking thing. Why? Because the standard was shattered for them in their minds. And their logic follows: if it can't be perfect, why try at all? Now, the Gohan type, he misses one workout, then goes back the next day, unfazed. No drama, no identity crisis, just adjustment. That is the effort collapse. One failure triggers total abandonment. Let me know if that's you. Sabotage number two is the burnout spiral. The thing that I hate about perfectionism is that it demands constant vigilance, constant self monitoring, constant fear that you're not enough. And you might recognize that in a lot of the hustle culture lately, the Andrew Tate type content that's all go, go, go until you burn out. That's not motivation, that's psychological torture. Your nervous system stays in fight or flight. Your cortisol stays elevated. Your creativity dies. Your joy evaporates. You end up building a prison instead of a life. And the worst part is, you think you're supposed to enjoy it. You think that's what success looks like. It's not. And it took me a while to really understand this fact. Now, sabotage number three is the diminishing returns. At some point, more effort doesn't equal better results. It just equals exhaustion. The perfectionist doesn't see this threshold. They just push harder, work longer, sacrifice more until one day they break. Now we're going to talk about where this all comes from so that we can identify the root cause. As I said earlier, perfectionism isn't born from confidence, it's born from failure. Specifically, the failure that you're fundamentally not enough. So you build a fortress of standards. If you can just be perfect enough, maybe you'll be worthy, maybe people will accept you, maybe then you'll finally feel safe. Maybe you won't even feel the pain of failure. But the trap is that perfection is a moving target. You hit one standard and your brain immediately realizes it. You achieve one goal and suddenly it wasn't impressive enough. It's a vicious spiral with no exit. Also, we have another trap you know all too well, imposter syndrome. This is where perfectionism really gets insidious. And there are two types of perfectionism. We have self oriented perfectionism, which is you hold yourself to impossible standards. And then there's socially prescribed perfectionism, where you believe others hold you to impossible standards. And the one thing that has made this absolutely worse is social media. You're constantly comparing yourself to everyone else's highlight reel. You're convinced that everyone is judging you, that one mistake will destroy your entire reputation. It won't. So you perform, you create, you hide, and the algorithm rewards this. It feeds on your anxiety, it profits from this fear you have of perfectionism. And you're not just trapped by your own standards anymore. You end up trapped by the standards you think everyone else has. Okay, so there are 5 ways to escape, and this is where we really get practical. So, escape number one is to lower the bar intentionally. You need to, I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, but the reality is that reasonable standards beat impossible ones every single time. And it's not because reasonable is better, it's because reasonable is sustainable. And that's what you need. You need to set a standard that you can actually hit and hit it consistently. Then raise it slightly. That's how you build momentum. And that's how you build identity. The Goten tries to jump from zero to hero in one leap. He fails, then quits. Gohan takes the stairs. Escape number two is surrender to failure. You've probably heard of this Japanese philosophy called wabi sabi, and it finds beauty in imperfection, in incompleteness. You see, your life does not need to be flawless, it doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be real. The cracks are where the light gets in. Start treating failure not as a catastrophe, but as data, as feedback. And that's just what it is. Not a reflection of your worth, but as information about your approach. Fail faster, fail smarter, fail publicly. And watch what happens to your anxiety. Escape number three is to reframe failure as progression. Here's a framework that will change everything for you. So, level one, you fail and quit. This is the perfectionist response. So, we want to move away from this level. Level two is fail and try again. This is basic resilience. Level three is you fail and adjust your approach. This is learning. Level four, you fail and extract wisdom that applies to future challenges, which is mastery. Most people oscillate between levels one and two. They never reach level three or four. Your job is to climb the levels. Each level is a step on the staircase. Escape number four is step outside your comfort zone deliberately. Perfectionism strives in controlled environments where you can manage every variable, where failure feels preventable. But growth lies in uncertainty. I need you to deliberately put yourself in situations where you can't be perfect. When you're a beginner, when you stumble, when you stutter over your words. This will rewire your nervous system and teach you that imperfection isn't failure. It's not fatal. It won't mean death. So this is what we're trying to condition out of the mind. Okay? So put yourself in uncomfortable situations and keep doing it until you start to feel invincible. Escape number 5 is sketch vague goals, not smart goals. So you've heard about SMART goals before, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. They're useful, but they're also perfectionist traps. This is because they create rigid targets, and when you miss them, even slightly, you feel like you failed. Instead, try vague goals, open ended, directional, flexible. Choose get healthier instead of lose 15 pounds by March 1st. Say build an audience instead of reach 10,000 followers in X months or in 6 months. Vague goals give you permission to iterate, to adjust, to be human. And this is actually mind blowing for me because I never believed in having vague goals. And I've spoken about vague goals, about how they could even possibly lead to failure to people that I know and even online. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I may have been wrong. Smart goals can work for some people, I guess, but you should try giving open ended goals a shot. You might find that it takes some of the heat off. And I've used both and they work. So if you've ever felt paralyzed by your own standards, it feels like a prison in your mind, right? If you've quit something because it wasn't perfect, if you've sacrificed joy for the illusion of flawlessness, this is your sign. You need to understand that you don't need to be perfect. What you need is to be consistent. What you need is to be real. What you need is to be willing to fail and learn. And that is the only path to excellence. Gohan understands this. He's not smarter than you, he's not more talented. He's just willing to be imperfect while he improves. And that is the only difference. So, my question for you is this: what would you attempt if perfectionism wasn't an option? What would you build? What would you create? Who would you become? That version of you is waiting, but they're waiting for you to lower the bar just enough so that he or she can step over it. That's it for this video. Subscribe if you want me to share more of my insights with you, and check out my socials, especially IG, where I share more of my personal life and thoughts. I'm actually living in Hong Kong at the moment. Before, I was living in Thailand for about 8 months. Before that, I was living in China. So who knows where I'll go next. If you are curious about what life is like in Asia and in other countries, drop a follow. Until next time.